Hello, welcome to Pre-Maths Lessons. Today we're going to be looking at everything you need to know about algebra. Okay, and there's a list of the topics that we're going to go through it, and majority by it covers basic algebra, algebra and graphs, quadratics, coordinates and linear graphs, graph recaps, inequalities, quadratic graphs, real life graph sequences, simultaneous equations, and solving quadratic equations. So these are the codes. Again, is for the higher tier mainly and only for higher tier. These questions I'm going to go through is for the higher tier. So if you're doing the foundation, make sure you look through something similar for foundation. For these are the question and these are the topics that we're going to be looking at in this. Okay, so these are the topics A1 to A25. Okay, and these are the on the national curriculum. So these are the guidance that's given to you by the AQA website or any other website that you're going to be following. Basically, it could be Excel, it could be OCR. So these are the common things that government or people expect you to know by end of your GCSEs, by when you finish your GCSEs. So these are 40 different questions that we're going to be looking at and trying to go through as quickly as possible so we can not. This video doesn't have to be 2 hours long. Okay, so without delay, let's get started. So there are a few questions here again. Basic algebra, that's what we're looking at here. So circle the correct words to complete the sentence. Okay, x squared plus 3x equal to 16 is which one of these? Okay, it can't be expressions because there is an equal sign here. So there is an equal sign here. So it can't be expression. It can be equation, yes. It can be formula or it can be identity. But in this case, we only know there's a one unknown and there's an equal sign. So this is an equation. If it's a formula, you're likely to have more than one unknown. So for example, here you have circle is pi times r squared. That's a formula. Identity means both sides equal regardless of what value of x, y, z unknown is. Both sides would be equal to each other and generally represented using three lines that represents equal, and that's what the identity is. Expression is just the left hand side or right hand side where you're expressing something to be without equal sign. So it's an equation. Again, similar things. From my explanation, what you would have got is this one here. What is that? It's not expression because there's an equal sign. It's not equation. Why? Because there's more than one unknown. It's a formula. That's right. Next one, circle the correct words to complete the sentence. So we got the x squared. And what did I say about the identity? It does have a 3 lines there. Okay, so this one is identity. When you expand these x plus 3 brackets, it will give you x squared plus 6x plus 9. So we know that's an identity. Circle the correct words to complete the sentence again. 2x plus y is an expression. There's no equal sign, so it can't be any one of those 3. It has to be expression. So that's the basic algebra there, what we just looked at. Okay, all you need to do is define what each one of those things are. You can look at one of my shorts on there. I have tried to explain it in those 30 seconds what each one of those things is. Okay, a r to the power b to the power 4 is equal to the where a and b are positive integer. Work out what a and b are. Okay, so let's just multiply out the powers, expand those powers. So it's going to be a to the power 4 and r to the power 4b. So now a to the power 4 has to be equal to 16 because they are positive integers, and r is to altogether power 20. So when you're comparing it, we know the constant is going to be same and r to the power is going to be the same because r to the 4b has to be same as r to the power 20. So those are the two different comparisons we're going to make. So we're going to do this one. Something to the power 4 is equal to 16 and 4b is equal to 20. So that's really easy. That's really easy to work with in a way. Something times 4 gives you 20, so b is equal to 5. And something to the power 4 is 16, so we know that 2 to the power 4 is 16. Then a has to be equal to 2. And that works, only 2 marks, so you get 1 mark and the 1 mark. So remember, we can compare the same thing, saying, okay, r to the power is r to the power. We can't have anything else that's equal. So 4b has to be equal to 20. And they're saying a and b are integers, so we know it's going to be whole number. It's not going to be decimal. It's not going to be fractions, okay? Where x is not equal to 0. can be written as one single fraction where a, b, c are integers. Again, a, b and c are whole number. That's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to simplify these fractions using algebra. Again, this comes under basic algebra. We're looking to simplify algebraic expression, and it's very similar to how you actually add or subtract fractions. When you're adding and subtracting fractions, you need the bottom number to be same, lowest common multiple. So lowest common multiple of 3x and 2x is 6x. So we're going to rewrite both of these over 6x. So we got to multiplying that 3x by 2 to get to 6x. So I need to multiply top number by 2 as well. So we get 2x plus 8. When you multiply x plus 4 by 2, you get x times 2 is 2x, 4 times 2 is 8. And then we move on to the next part again. Take away something over 6x. I'm multiplying 2x by 3 to get to 6x. Now we got the bottom number, denominator same. Okay, so the top number should be multiplied by 3 as well. So we get 3 times 5, that gives you 15. So all I have to do is now, once you have denominators same, bottom numbers are exactly the same, we're going to add and subtract the numerators. So we're going to write it down as a 2x plus 8 minus 15 over 6x. And that's what we needed to do. We can do add 8 and negative 15 together to give you 2x minus 7 over 6x. Because 8 take away 15 is negative 7. So this is what we got, where A is 2, B is negative 7, and C is 6. That's it. S and T are positive integers, means positive whole numbers. So those are the positive whole numbers, and it's expanded and simplifies to get you x squared minus k minus 40, where k is also positive integers. Okay, so we know s times t will give you 40. And when you expand this thing here together, we know two things here for sure. Okay, so s multiplied by t will give you 40. That's for sure, because that's minus t there, so that's why we get minus 40. So we're saying, okay, what? And then when you add or subtract them, we should get this k. Okay, and it has to be positive, so t has to be smaller number than s. So we can put another constraint: s has to be bigger than t for k to be positive here. So we can look at it, possibilities of s and t. So we look for the factors. So it can be s has to be bigger, so you're saying 40 and 1. And if you're doing that, the middle number will come from those. Okay, so s add t will give you k. So if that's 40, s is 40, and that's 1, and then t is negative t there. So we're going to be saying, okay, because this has to be positive, the s has to be bigger. K is 39, and then we can look at it 20 and 2. Then the k is, then we look at it, 3 doesn't go, 4 goes, so we're doing 10 and 4. So k is 6. What are the numbers 8 and 5? You know the 8 and 5 and that k gives you, k would be 3. There isn't any other number that goes into it. The smallest possible value of k would be 3. If s is 8 and t is 5, then we get smallest possible value for k is 3. Expand and simplify again. Because it's a height here, you got double brackets. So still looking at very basic part of the algebra, simplifying, expanding. Okay, you can use the grid method here. So we got 2x plus 3 multiplied by 6x minus 1, and I can cross them off. 6x times 2x gives you 12. 6 times 2 is 12. X times x is x squared. 6 times 3 is 18, and times x, plus is positive. 2 times 1 is negative 2, because that's negative. And then you got negative 3 at the end. So we get 18x and negative 2x, that gives you 16x. So the final answer we get is 12x squared plus 16x and minus 3. That's our answer. Solving the equation. So we can possibly do two different ways. You can factorize it, you can use a quadratic formula, or you can use a graph method, okay, or completing square. So the easiest way is to factorize it here. And when you're factorizing it, when you have the coefficient of x squared, we generally work with the multiplication and trying to work out what are the possible number that gets you to those things. Okay, so because it's similar to that thing, we know we got this inside here. We know we got 4x squared and we got negative 3. Okay, we need to get x from these two. So there are quite a few different possibilities that come across basically, because you got the 4 and the negative 3. There's 4 different possibilities that can be working with here. So we need to work out the x to be just 3. Only one pair there for 3. 1 and 3. It's a prime number. So we're going to just put it that way, saying, okay, 1 and 3. One of the number has to be negative. We don't know which one it's going to be negative right now, but one of them has to be negative. So that's for sure. Then, okay, we need to get this one. It could be 1x and 4x or 2x and 2x. So let's start with 2x and 2x. If you do 2x times 3, that's 6x. 2x times 1, that's not going to get you x. So we need to work with 4 and 1. Okay, so we're saying, okay, x by 4x. 4x times 1 gives you 4x. And x times 3 gives you 3x. So now we can get the difference of 1x. So that has to be negative. So that means this one has to be negative. Because 4x take away 3x gives you 1x. So we get one side 4x take away 3. And that one has to be x plus 3. X plus 1. So those are the two factors we get. 4x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 1. Okay, do we get those two length and the width of that rectangle in a way? Now that's equal to 0. If two numbers multiply to get you answer 0, one of those numbers has to be 0. They're trying to think of two numbers that multiplies together to give you answer 0. One of those numbers has to be 0. So what we're going to do is saying, okay, it's either that equal to 0. So we can say if you make 4x minus 3 go to 0, then you have 0 multiplied by x plus 1 will give you 0 answer. So if 4x minus 3 is equal to 0, what's the value of x? So we can add 3 on both sides. 4x is equal to 3. Then divide both sides by 4. We get x equal to 3/4. So when x is 3/4, this will go to 0. And 0 times x plus 1 will give you 0. That's one of the answers. There's another possibility that x plus 1 is 0. Then 0 multiplied by 4x minus 3 gives you 0 answer. So we can say another possibility is x plus 1 is equal to 0. That gives you x to be negative 1. So those are our two answers. And that's 3 marks for doing that. So you factorize it and then find the x. Now factorization with the coefficient of x squared can be slightly trickier. Okay, there are multiple ways of doing it, and I'm trying to go through this entire thing as quickly as possible. So we're gonna just skip past that right now. Okay, we can look at it in more detail afterward. Expand and simplify. There are triple brackets, 4 marks. We can do 2x plus 3y all squared first, and then multiply with x minus 4. So again, when you're expanding the brackets, stick to the same method. You can use a grid method at any point. Okay, so we got 2x plus 3y, and then we go again 2x plus 3y. So now 2x times 2x gives you 4x squared. 2x times 3y gives you 6. 2 times 3 is 6. And then xy, and it's positive. Everything's positive here, by the way. That's also 6xy. There's no negative sign, so it's going to do 6xy, and 6xy gives you 12xy, and 3y times 3y gives you 9y squared. So we can write that down in its simplest form. So now we have x minus 4. That is multiplied with the entire thing, which is 4x squared plus 12xy plus 9y squared. Remember, this 2 added together gives you 12xy. So we can do the same thing again. Another grid method where you got 4x squared plus 12xy plus 9y squared. And on this side I got x and negative 4. So we got x times 4x squared gives you 4x cubed. x times 12xy gives you 12x squared y, and x times 9y squared gives you 9xy squared. And they're all positive again, but these ones are negative, so I'm going to write negative sign in front of the negative terms that we're going to get. 4x squared multiplied by negative 4 gives you negative 16x squared. 12 times negative 4 gives you negative 48xy. 4 times 9 gives you 36, so you get negative 36y squared. Now we're going to have to add the repeat terms. If there are no repeat terms, then we have to move forward. Okay, so I go x cubed, x squared. That's the expanded and the simplified version of the entire things that we get. Identities are given, and we need to work out what a and what b is. This is completed square of this version here. So what we can do is we can expand the bracket and simplify to work out what a and what b is. So expanding the brackets and then simplifying it. So x minus 5 all squared. Again, we can do that. X minus 5 and x and minus 5 again. X times x is x squared, negative 5x, negative 5x, and positive 25. Two negative multiplied together gives you positive 25. So what we get when you do x minus 5 squared is x squared, negative 10x, and 25. So we're going to write it down on this side here. X squared minus 10x plus 25, and then we go add 7. So we can simplify the entire thing as x squared minus 10x plus 32. 25 add 7 is 32. So now we know what a is. A is negative 10. First three terms of the sequence is nth term. This is what, again, algebraic sequences, or we can working with the sequences and trying to work out nth term formulas. So this to do with sequences and working with the sequences and trying to work out the formulas of those sequences, generalizing sequences, trying to do that. Okay, first three terms have half, 2/3, and 3/4, and you can see the pattern here. Okay, that 2 will go there, that 3 will go there, and the 4 will go there. We know it's going to be 4/5. Okay, so we're going to be saying 5, 6. So the top number is always one less than the bottom number. So that's going to be 5, 6, and we continue with it, and you get n over n plus 1. Explain clearly why the n plus 1th term has the sequence n plus 1 over n plus 2. Okay, so sequences are the nth terms are n over n plus 1. Then the next term will have n plus 1 at the top, and then you're adding that on. Okay, so we're saying the next term would be n plus 1 over n plus 1 add 1. So we get n plus 1 over n plus 1 add 1, which gives you n plus 2. That's it. That's the explanation we can get out clearly. Show that the difference between the n plus 1th term and the nth term is that. Okay, so we're trying to work out the difference between those two terms. So nth term is this, n over n plus 1. And then the nth plus 1 term is going to be n plus 1 over n plus 2. And if you're trying to find the difference, we're doing the one term take away other. Okay, now if I'm doing that take away that, that's still fine, or that take away this one, that's still fine as well. So we're going to take away this second one. Okay, let's first term. Hopefully that's generally the bigger term. Okay, so we're going to try and do this calculation here, finding the difference between them. To work out the difference between the two terms, again, we're just adding and subtracting fractions. The biggest things you need to do when you're adding and subtracting fractions is find the lowest common multiple of the denominator. And the lowest common multiple, when you have unknowns there, if you multiply these together, that gives you the lowest common multiple, which is that n plus 1 multiplied by n plus 2. So we multiply them together, n plus 1 multiplied by n plus 2. So in that case, basically, if I wanted to, n plus 2 goes into this expression n plus 1 times. So if I wanted to change that, I'm multiplying top and the bottom by n plus 1. So at the top, I get n plus 1 all squared. And for that one, taking away, and I'm multiplying both top and bottom by n plus 2. So at the top, I get n times n plus 2. Okay, we already had n plus 1, so I'm multiplying it by n plus 2. We already had n plus 2, I'm multiplying top and bottom by n plus 1. So that's why we get n plus 1 squared. Now, so far what we got is correct in a way. We just need to make sure that top part will only give me 1 when I multiply them out. So this one will give you n squared plus 2n. And remember, we're taking away this entire thing from this part. And this one will give you n squared plus 2n plus 1. When you square n plus 1. So when you take away n squared to n squared, we cancel these out. When you take away 2n from 2n, you cancel those out. So all you're left with is just that 1 at the top, and you're dividing it by n plus 1 divided by n plus 2. So this is what we get when you finalize it. 1 over n plus 1 multiplied by n plus 2. That's it. And we showed that. So you need to write every single line here. Okay, obviously I wrote that slightly bigger. I ran out of space here. The difference between those two terms is going to be slightly more than the terms that we're looking at. Okay, and that's the reason I used the just. Okay, question 9. So what we're looking at here is show that the xy is multiple of 5. Okay, xy is a multiple of 5 if that's the case. Okay, and this is equation of circle. Something squared take away something squared is equal to 360. Even if you're not sure about it, that's fine. Okay, we're just going to try and work out that, show that the xy is a multiple of 5. And all we're trying to do is making sure that this should be equal to 360. Expand the brackets and expand the brackets, take away, and then compare it with the 360 on the other side. So if I expand the brackets, I'll get 4x squared plus 12xy plus 9y squared. That's from the first brackets here. Again, I'm trying to go through it quickly. You can take your time. Again, my things is slightly bigger. When you expand those brackets, this is what we get. And if you expand the next brackets, I'm taking away and putting the brackets around it. So remember, I'm not just going to take away directly, saying I'm taking away the entire things within the brackets. So we get inside the brackets, we get 4x squared again. But that, because of that minus 3y, we would have negative 12xy. Okay, and then negative 3y squared gives you still positive 9y squared. And we're taking away this entire thing from there. So 4x squared take away positive 4x squared. They cancel each other out. 9x squared take away 9x squared. They cancel each other out. So what you're left with here? 12xy take away negative 12xy. So 12xy take away negative 12xy will give you 24xy. And that should be equal to 360. So if I divide both sides by 24, what would you get? We get 15. So we got x, y is equal to 15. So we know the xy is equal to 5 times 3. So whatever the xy is always going to be multiple of 5. And we've shown everything that we needed to do. Make sure you show this working out and this working out separately to make sure you get 1 mark each for that, and then you get the last mark for showing this part out. Question 10. You got two different functions and we need to show the inverse function of this one here is same as this function, composite with this one, and 4 of that value is going to be exactly the same. So first thing I would do is I want to find the inverse function of 2x minus 3. And if you're never sure about these things, it's just working with this kind of things. It's like saying y equal to 2x minus 3. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of that if you need me to, but it's important that you understand that's some function there of x. That's another function of x, but this time this one is saying y equal to x squared. And reason we're using the instead of y, this g of x and f of x, because there are two separate functions, so we don't want to get confused when we're working with it. And again, what is that function y equal to 2x minus 3? That means if you take x and you go through it, this is your input, and you take the input and multiply it by 2, you get 2x. And then take that 2x and take away 3, we get 2x minus 3. And this is equal to y, and that's your output. So x is your input, y is your output. You put x equal to 1 in there, you multiply by 2, take away 3, gives you y. So when you want to work out this f minus 1, that means the inverse function. What do I need to have as an output to find the input, okay, of 55? What do I need to do to get there? So when I want to do the reverse things, I need to take y and add 3. Whatever the output is, we know that if you're doing the inverse function in the reverse motion, you're adding 3, so you get y add 3. And then instead of multiplying by 2, we divide by 2, so you get y add 3 over 2. Okay? And that's the input you would get. If that's the output, that would be your input. And that's why it's called inverse function. So instead of using y, we're going to have to use x, because we're saying it's the inverse function. This is our input value going to be, but on this end rather than having it on this end. So the first thing we're going to do is rewrite that function and find the inverse function, so we know what f of inverse 1 would look like. So basically making x the subject. Okay, so add 3 on both sides and then divide by 2. So we get x equal to y plus 3 over 2. So that means our inverse function of x, f of inverse x, would look like that. X plus 3, so because we're going to be using x as our input, and then divided by 2. So that's your inverse function, okay, the reverse. If you went to go in reverse, this is what it would look like. And then we're going to find the composite function, okay. So we first find the g of 4. So we're just going to do that in one go, okay. What is g of 4? So instead of x, we're going to use 4 in there, okay. So instead of x, we're going to use 4 in there. So instead of x, we're going to have to use 4 in there as well. So what is 4 squared? Which is 16. So g of 4 is equal to 16. Now we're going to put g of 4 where the x is here in f. So we're trying to find f of g of 4. G of 4 is 16, so we're trying to find f of 16. So wherever you see x in the function f, we're going to replace it with 16. So we're going to be looking at saying f of 16 is equal to 2 times 16 and minus 3. So 32 take away 3 is 29. Okay, and that's our answer for fg of 4. Okay? And we need to make sure that the f of -1, so inverse function of 55, should give you this one. If you look at the first function and do the 55 of inverse function, then it should give you 29 as well. So we're putting that in here. In that function, we're putting 55. We know that function is this one here, which is 55 add 3 and divide by 2. 55 add 3 is 58. 58 divided by 2 is 29. So we know that f of inverse 55 is same as f of g of 4, which is 29 as well, and we've shown that. The main thing is understanding what f function is, what g function is. They both function of x, and they are two different functions. That's why we're using two different letters for that. Have to make it slightly smaller to make sure that we can get the entire questions in here. Okay, give your answer in terms of y equal to mx plus c. This is generalized form for the straight line equation. Okay, we got the points here. We know this L and M are parallel, means they have the same gradients. Work out the equation of the line L. We need to look at the equation of the line N. And we only know 1 point on line L, whereas we know 2 points on the line N. And if you're working out the equation of any line, we need to work out the gradient. Because two lines are parallel, That means they both have the same gradient. And the gradient is the slope of the line, how quickly something is going up. So if I do the triangle here, saying, okay, if I go one step across, how many steps am I going up? So if you look at a x value goes from 4 to 6. So we're going 2 across. And then the y value going from 0 to 10. We're going 10 up. So every one step you move across, you're going 5 up. So the slope of this line here is 5. My gradient of this line here, m, is 5. And how do we generally work out? So we're saying, okay, m is equal to change in y divided by change in x. So change in y, if you look at it, these 2 points, or you can do y coordinates taken away y coordinates. So which is 10 take away 0. And I'm going to do the same thing. X coordinate take away the x coordinates, which is 6 take away 4. 10 take away 0 is 10. Divide by 6 take away 4 is 2, which gives me gradient to be 5. And that's how you generally look at the gradient. So gradient of that line is 5. Both of these are parallel. That means the gradient of the line L is also 5. That means we know the gradient here for the L is also 5. Now all we know is this equation of the line L that we've been asked to work out is going to be like this. Y equal to 5x, because that's always going to be the form, plus c. Where does it cross this y-axis? We need to work out that point. It's not that really straightforward. Okay, we are at minus 3. And we're going every one across, we're going 5 up. Every one across, we're going to pay 5 up. So by the time we get to 0, we're going to be going 15 up from that point onward. So we know C is going to be 25. But we can do it better. They might not be exactly the nice number to work with when we do that. But we know this point is on there. So we're going to use that point. That's the x value on that point. Come on. And that's the y value on that point. So when you're saying when x is negative 3 in here, y has to be 10. What is that c going to be? If when x is negative 3, y has to be 10. For y to be 10, what value c has to be? So we substitute x equal to negative 3 in there, this point, because that's the line we're working with. And then use those points to work out what c is. So we're saying when y is 10, x has to be negative 3. What value of c is going to be? So we know that's 10 is equal to negative 15 add something. See, so negative 15 add 25 will give you that 10. So c has to be 25. And we found the equation then. C is 25 and m is 5. We put it in that form. We get y equal to 5x plus 25. So that crossing point there, we said that is going to be 15 from that 10 up. So when x goes to 0, that's going to go 15 up, because every one step across, we're going 5 steps up. So 5x plus 25 will give you that full mark. Another question like that, again, graphs, equation of the straight lines, and the line, normal line, that's become slightly trickier, but we know these things here. Just this is a recap. You should be able to do this without massive problem. The gradient of the line is OR. So this line here is 7/4. Okay. That means I know the gradient of this line as well. If the two lines are perpendicular, then when you multiply those two gradients, gradient of that one, M1 and M2, if they are normal, perpendicular to each other, that sum would be, product would be -1. So in other words, gradient of this one would be same as saying -1 over gradient of that one. Okay? Normal to this line here. So we know the gradient of that one. So all I have to do is saying, okay, put it in here. -1 over 7/4. And that is, flip that over in a way, or saying -1 divided by 7/4. So you're doing -1 division. So keep, change, flip. So all together we get this gradient here is -4/7. Okay, negative reciprocal of that one. So -4/7. That's what we get for the gradient of this line here. When you do that calculation, this is what you get. Again, if you're not sure, have a look at this. -1 divided by 7/4. Keep, change, flip. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 over 7. Okay, that's what you would get for the gradient of QP. So work out the equation of the line QP. So we already worked out the gradient there. Okay, now we know the P is passes this point, this line here passes to the point 14, 0. Again, we're doing the same thing. We know the x value and the y value. We use that to work it out. And we also know the gradient, m, which is negative 4, 7. So we use these three things to work out the equation of the line, and we need to give our answer in that form, which we can rearrange afterwards. So we're saying, okay, y is equal to negative 4, 7x plus c. We're trying to work out c using this point here, where x is 14, y has to be 0. So 0 is equal to negative 4 over 7 times 14 plus c. So 7 goes into 14 twice, so we go negative 8 plus c gives you 0. So c has to be 8. Okay, when you do this calculation, we know the c is going to be 8. So we worked out our equation. We can write it down now. Saying y is equal to negative 4, 7x plus 8. But we want the equation in that form. We don't want that fraction. We want ax plus by equal to c. So we're going to multiply both sides by 7 to get rid of that fraction. So we get 7y equal to negative 4x plus 56. Now we want the x on this side. So negative, add 4x on both sides. We would get 4x plus 7y because we added 4x on both sides. So that gives you 0, and which is equal to 56. So that's our equation, 4x plus 7y equal to 56. Quadratic curves. Okay. So now we're looking at quadratic equation and the quadratic graphs. If it's upside down parabola, upside down this nth shape, then it's quadratic. Anyway, this is a quadratic curve. But if it's upside down like this is negative x squared, some sort of negative x squared, ax squared, okay, or a could be 1 or it could be any other number, but it's a negative quadratic equation. That's what we know from fact here. That 18 is the lowest point. It's been shown to us here. Quadratic curve intersect the x-axis at negative 3, 0 and 3, 0. So those are the two roots in a way. But what it means is what it means is if I multiply those out, basically if I say x minus 3 is one of the factor of that one, is that one there, and x plus 3 is another factor. Also we know that this is going to be upside down, so it's a negative x squared. So this might not be true, okay, but those are the two roots that we know when you make that equal to 0. Another thing is this y. When x is 0, y value is going to be 18, and we don't get 18 from here, okay, and that means I can do, when x is 0, y is 18. That means I need to multiply. I get 3 times 3, which is negative 9. When x is 0, I get y value to be negative 9. So I need to do negative 2 as a multiplication outside. Okay. That is my equation. Okay. Now you can work it out so many different ways, but this is how I worked it out. I'll use these two roots. X plus 3 is equal to 0, so x is equal to negative 3. And x plus minus 3 is equal to 0, so x is equal to positive 3. But I need my, when x is 0, y is 18, so I need looked at it. When x is 0, I get negative 3 times negative 3 gives you negative 9. I need to multiply that negative 9 by negative 2. That gives me y value to be 18. So this is my equation in a way. Okay, and that should be alright to write it down. Work out the equation of that curve. And I can write it down as however I like. I can multiply them out. X squared minus 9. Minus 3x plus 3x gives you 0. That's negative 2. So what we get is negative 2x squared plus 18 is equal to y. And that's my equation if you wanted to look at it that way. Another to do with the curve. Circle the coordinates of the turning point. So turning point here, if this is already completed square, and then what it means is turning point here, if you know the completed square, okay, if you complete the square and if you know that, then we can work out that turning point easily. Okay, what it means is what's the biggest number you can get for y for the smallest number of x value. Okay, so what's the biggest y value you can get, or what's the smallest y value you can get when you complete that square? So smallest y value you can get here is saying, okay, is that going to be 5? Because any time you square a number is always going to be positive. What's negative 8 squared? Is going to be 64. So what do I get? The smallest number from the squaring a number. So squaring a 0 would give you a smallest number possible, which is 0. So when you square that part, so you make x plus 3 0, your y value going to be 5. So y value has to be 5. In this case, it's either going to be one of these two. Y value has to be 5, because when you make x plus 3 equal to 0. So if you're making x plus 3 to be 0, what's the x value has to be? If you're making x plus 3 equal to 0, your x value has to be negative 3. So we know it's going to be this one here. When x is negative 3, y is equal to positive 5. The turning point of the graph, again, same thing. Where x has a coordinate negative 2, means x plus a is equal to 0, and that gives you x value to be negative 2. So we're saying x plus a is equal to 0, where a has to be negative 2. So if a is negative 2, that's what we figured it out already. Okay, work out the y coordinates of the turning points. If a is negative 2, what's the y coordinates going to be? Well, we know the one of the other points on that graph, so we know we need to put that in first. A is negative 2, complete it and work out what the y value b is going to be when a is negative 2. So we use that to work out this missing b, and then that would be your y coordinates of the turning point. Y coordinates of the turning points is going to be b. Okay, so let's put that in here. We're saying x add 2 all squared plus b is equal to y. And we know the one of the points on that one, which is 3, 1. What we're saying is when x is 3, y has to be 1. Okay, so we substitute that in there as well. When x is 3, y has to be 1. So 1 is equal to 3, add 2 all squared, add b. 3 add 2 is 5, 5 squared is 25. 25 add b will give you 1. So 25 add b will give you 1. That implies the b has to be negative 24. Again, we need to be able to know the graphs, all of those different graphs, okay? And we can actually work it out. All of these things can be worked out. I can tell you what each one of those shapes looks like. If it's a cube graph, that means the negative, for the negative parts, majority of it is going to be down here, because the negative multiplied by negative, y value will be negative. So it generally goes like this. Okay, that's the cubic graph. But we know, so this can't be the cubic graph. Cubic graph will have this one. Okay, obviously because you have some x squared, some x's, some 1s. Okay, so near the x-axis, near the 0, it might go in the opposite direction, but for majority of the numbers, when you multiply 3 negative numbers, the answer would be negative. When you multiply 3 positive numbers, answer would be positive. So it will does that. Okay, that's the cubic graph. Now if it's a reciprocal graph, so 1 divided by something, means 1 divided by 1 is 1, so that's going to be there. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1, that's going to be there. Those are the biggest point you possibly get in a way. Okay, then 1 divided by really small numbers, so 1 divided by 0.1 is 10. 1 divided by 0.01 is 100. So for a really small number, it will go up. So this is the 1. And if it's a really big number, 1 divided by 100 is 100. So it gets smaller that way, but it never gets to 0. And then the same thing for the negative number as well. 1 divided by negative 0.1 is negative 100, and so on. So this is the graph that we're looking at. If it's a cos x and the sin x graph, they are the continuous waves, okay? So cos x starts with 1, and then it goes like this. And if it's a sin x, it starts from 0. So rather than starting from 1, it starts from here and goes like this. Okay. So that's the only difference between the sin x and cos x. This is exponential graph, mean 2 to the power, 3 to the power, 4 to the power, some number to the power. So as soon as you go 2 to the power 1 is 2, 2 squared is 4, 2 cubed is 8, 2 to the power 4 is 16, and 32, and so on. It gets really, really big really quickly. So write down the coordinates of a. So 2 to the power 0, that's what we're trying to work out. X is 0. So what's 2 to the power 0? 2 to the power 0 is 1. So when x is 0, y is 1. That's the cos graph. Look, we said that earlier. Starting from 1, then it goes to 0, and it does that for every 180 degrees. Every 360 degrees with the same cycle. Okay. So saying cos x is equal to cos 60, that means x is equal to 60. Okay, not necessarily. Work out the value of the x from 90 to 360. Okay, so where is the 60 degree angle? So cos 60 is here. That's 30, 60. Okay, and that's the answer there. So that's not the only answer if I look at it. That's not same as cos 60 here. We can get the same answer from the different one, which is there. And that is 60 degree more than, not 60 degrees, sorry, 30 degree more than 270. It's an identical graph. So from 90 to that way, 270 to that way. So that's plus 30 here from 270. That means it's the same thing as 300, cos 300. Okay, so the x, cos x can be same as cos 300. That's it. That's what we're looking to do here. Cos x is negative cos 60. Negative cos 60 means this part here. Okay, and that's what we're looking at. So the entire cos 60 becomes negative in a way. So entire cos 60 becomes negative. Whatever that you had there, this goes to the negative answer. So somewhere here. So that would be again 30 degree that way. Okay, that's negative cos 60 here. For positive cos 60, that's negative cos 60. So the two places we can get is these one. 30 degree from 90, so 120. But we only want it between 180 and 360. So 180 and 360 would be just this number here, 30 degree before that. So it would be cos of 240. So remember that's part of that. So cos 240 degrees is what we wanted for that. Again, another cos and sine graphs. This is sine graphs. Remember, start from 0 and goes down. 1 plus sine x between 0 and 360 on the grid below. So 1 plus, so you got sine x and the y value would be 1 added to it. So you're just shifting everything 1 up. So if we're looking at where that 0 is, we move that one there. Where that 1 is, we move it to 2. Where that 0 is, move it to 1. Where that minus 1 is, move it to 0. And where that 1 is, 0 is, move it to 1. So the graph will look exactly the same, but everything shifted 1 up, okay, on that graph. So that's 1 added on to the sine x. 1 added to the sine x, you can say is a sine x plus 1. And we've done the graph from 0 to 360 degrees. This one saying, okay, sine of x plus 90. So everything remains same, saying, okay, when do I get the same y value for what value of x? If I wanted sine 90, I need to get x to be 0. So sine 90 comes from when x is 0. So everything actually moves 90 degree this way. When x is 0, you get the same value as that. Okay, 90 degree moved that way. That one will go there. Okay, that comes from sine. When x is 90, you get the same value as sine 180. When x is 180, you get same value as 270. Okay, when x is 360, you get same value as 460. Whatever that is, basically 270. So it will go something like this. So everything's moved 90 degree that way. So similar to cos graph. N is given by 60 over t. The t is the time in minutes. Machine takes to make one item. Okay. So the number of item you would get is whatever it times take to make one item divided by 60 in 1 hour. Okay. So the value of t changes different type of items. On the grid below, draw the graphs for n equal to 60 over t, where the value of t ranges from 1 to 4. Okay. So what would it look like when t is equal to 1? So when t is equal to 1, n is 60. Now, okay, we're not sure what the t is equal to. 0 is equal to anything divided by 0 is not known. Okay, so we can't put a line on here, but we know as soon as it goes towards 0, you get more and more number of items. Okay, so if it's 0.1 second, we know we're going to be 60 divided by 0.1 is really high. So our answer will be coming from there somewhere. Okay, like this. And that is the curve of a graph. When n is equal to t is equal to 2, we get 30. So it's here. When t is equal to 3, we get 20. When t is equal to 4, when t is equal to 4, we get 15. So halfway between these. So we know the line is going to be coming down sharply like this. Okay, so that's the graph we get. And it never touches that axis. So machine takes 3.30 seconds to make one item. 3.30 seconds would be here. So we go drawing up and across. So if it's 3.30 seconds, somewhere between 50 and 20. So it's closer to 15 than 20. So we can say 12, 14, 16, 17 items. In this case, we're going to have to be looking at 16 items roughly. We're using our graph and we're drawing the straight lines to estimate the value of the items we're making. Again, exponential graph going from 0 to 4. Make one criticism of this graph. Okay, when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 1. 2 to the power 3 is 8, 2 to the power 4 is 16. Yes, that's where the wrong part is. 2 to the power 4 is 16 and not 15. If you look at it, that should have been here. Okay, slightly above that. So that's the only criticism I could find. The x and the y is given to you, there's nothing else there. So again, I had to go through this motion. What are the criticism? What are the possible mistakes they could make? They generally leave out these titles, but we don't need it because it says just y equal to 2 to the power x. So that's x, that's y, that's done. So that can be it. Then you can look for it, saying, okay, did I miss anything out? Are they scaled properly? So I went through that. And then when I look at it, are all the points correct? So 2 to the power 0 is 1, 2 to the power 1 is 2, 4, 8, and that should be 16, but it's 15. So they found the mistake there. It should have been 16, okay? 4, 16. Should have been 4, 16. When x is 4, y should have been 16. So that's the problem with that graph. Leo runs 12 seconds. The graph shows his speed. Show the distance he runs in a less than 67.5 meter. Distance he runs is less than 67.5 meter. And it's 4 mark question. I'm not going to get those 4 mark by doing it straight away again. These are the graphs. Speed, distance, time graph. Or you can look at it distance velocity graphs or time velocity graphs or the time distance graph. Here we got time and the speed. When the distance traveled would come from working out the area underneath that graph. Okay, if I work out this area underneath here, that'll give me the total distance traveled. And that's what I'm going to be looking for here. Okay, we're trying to show that, so I need to work out every single part, which is 5 across. I'm going to try and look at this triangle first. 5 across and 8 up. So we got the first part here, this area of this triangle, 5 times 8 times half. So we know it's going to be 20 meters. Then we can work out this parallelogram or trapezium. Or you can look at the rectangle and then look at this trapezium. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that line at 9. Okay. Yeah, this line is at 9. So 5 to 9, the length is 4. The height is 8. Now 9. 9 and that height is 8. So add those together, multiply by the height, and then half it. So we got 8 add 9 gives you 17 times 2 is 34. So this area there is 34 meter. And then the last one we can only estimate because this is curve. So we can estimate using a triangle. Okay, so triangle would have the length 3, height 9. So 9 times 3 is 27. 27 divided by 2, which is some decimal numbers, which is 13.5. And that gives you this area of this triangle here. And if the curve is underneath that, okay, so it's going to be less than whatever we worked out to be. So 20 and 30, 54, 54 and 10, which is 64, 67.5. So we worked out the entire area for this is 67.5. And this curve means it's going to be less than that. We have some extra area that we included that shouldn't have been because we used the estimate. And therefore it's going to be, the total distance is going to be less than 67.5 because the area is underneath that line that we used. Acceleration, average acceleration for first 9 seconds, not just first part. Make sure you read the questions carefully, state your units for your answer. So in 9 seconds, what was the speed in first 9 seconds? So 9 second speed was 9. Average on, so first 9 seconds speed was 9 meter per second divided by 9 seconds. Okay, so what we get here is 9 divided by 9. It says take your unit of those answers. So 9 meter per second. Second is underneath. 9 divided by 9, we get 1 meter per second per second. What it means is you get 1 meter per second squared. Okay, so you're going up in 1 meter per second squared. That speed is going up by 1 meter per second every second. So this is equation of the circle. X squared plus y squared is equal to 9. Work out the length of the diameter. So the radius, the equation of the circle is always in that form. X take away a squared plus y take away b whole squared, which is equal to r squared, where a, b is your center and r squared. So the square root of that 9 should be your radius. So now radius of this circle here is 3. And we've been asked to work out the diameter. Remember, again, read the questions carefully. I would have made mistake of circling 3 here, but diameter is double the radius, so it's going to be 6. Again, equation of the circle is that. So we know the length from 0 to that part, 0 to this part, 0 to that part. All of those are square root of 80. That's your radius. So anywhere around that square root of 80. P has 4 coordinates, is below the x-axis. Okay. P has x coordinate 4, that's below the x-axis. X coordinate is 4 below the x-axis. So we know this is, we already know that's going to be the case if it's us outside. Okay, so that's going to be way bigger than 4 here. So we know that point there is going to be 4, that line P. So x is 4. Okay, and then we know this is root 80. So that length here is 4. From there to there is 4. We know that's root 80. That's 4. Just need to work out that this is right angle triangle. We can work that out. Okay. We can work out what that length is, what the y coordinate is of that point there. We can do that very easily using Pythagoras theorem. Say something squared plus 4 squared is equal to 80. Okay. So we need to do some x squared plus 4 squared equal to root 80 squared. So we know the x squared is equal to 16 plus 16 equal to 80. So we know the x squared is equal to 80 take away 16. We can put that in the calculator, work out what that y coordinates of p is. Okay, works out to be 8. X squared is 64, that gives you x to be 8. So this length here is 8, so y coordinates of p is 8. So we know the 1 point of that. What other things we know is that we know the x coordinates of that one. We just need to work out what the y coordinate is going to be. We need to work out the equation of that tangent. We also know this root 80 and this part here makes 90-degree angle. So we can actually try and work out the gradient of that line, root 80. That makes this tangent, and the radius. Radius and tangents always meet at 90-degree angle. So what we're trying to do here is trying to work out what's the gradient of that going to be if one of the point is 4, 8 and other point is 0, 0. So again, the gradient of this line is going to be change in y, which is 8 take away 0 is 8, and then the change in x, which is, that's negative 8, sorry. Okay, negative 8, because it goes downwards. So negative 8 take away 0 is negative 8, and 4 take away 0 is 4. So we got gradient is negative 2 for that one. That means we know the gradient of this normal tangent to that, which is going to be half. The gradient of this line here is going to be minus 1 over negative 2. That gives you gradient of that one to be half. So we now know the equation, saying equation is going to be half x plus c, and we're using the point 4 and negative y. So when x is 4, y has to be negative 8. So you get negative 8 equal to half times 4 gives you 2 plus c. So c at what gives you negative 8? So we know the c is equal to negative 10. Okay, and now we can work out the entire equation, saying the equation is going to be y equal to half x minus 10, and that's the equation of that tangent p. I'm hoping that this is the last question, because I've been talking for a long while. Okay, I need some water as well, so I need to go through this as quickly as possible. Here are the two rectangles here. We can work out the area of the shaded rectangle is 1/4 of the area of the large rectangle here. Okay, so this entire rectangle and then the shaded rectangle, that part is x on the both sides. Okay, whatever the length is, that length and that length is exactly the same. That's x plus 2. So that means this height here is 2. Okay, that's 12. That means this part here is 12 minus x. Work out the value of x. What we know is shaded part is 1/4 of this entire thing. So we got the equation here. Okay, the area of the entire things, the large rectangle, is 12 times x plus 2. So area of the large rectangle is 12 times x plus 2, which gives me 12x plus 24. Okay, that's the area of the big entire rectangle. Now we need to work out, saying, okay, what's the area of this small rectangle? If you did that, you would have got 1 mark as well. Working out 12 times 12 minus x, okay, multiplied by 2. So we do that one, okay, 2 times 12 minus x, which is area of the small rectangle, and that's the area of the large rectangle. The small rectangle will be 24 minus 2x. We know that this is 1/4 of that, so we can say this is 4 times this should be same as this one here. So we can say 4 times 24 minus 2x is same as 12x plus 24. That's really straightforward to put it down, and then we can expand and simplify it. 4 times 24 gives you 96, I think. Yes. Minus 8x, which should be equal to 12x plus 24. Add 8x on the both sides of the equal sign, we get 96 equal to 20x plus 24. Divide both sides by 24. Take away 24 from both sides, we get 72. 72 is equal to 20x. We get 3.6. X is equal to. Divide both sides by 20 and we get x equal to 3.6, and that's done for us. And that's the end of the question, I think. No, one more, last one hopefully. The area of the rectangle is 28 centimeters square, where you know this is x plus 2 and that's 6x minus 1. Work out the perimeter of the rectangle. So we need to work out what x is first. This is a 7-mark question, okay? So we got to work out the area here, which is x plus 2 times 6x minus 1. Multiply them out, you get 6x squared. Then you got 6x times 2, or x times 2 is minus x times 1. 6x times is positive 12x, and then negative 2. That will give you positive 11x. So you got 6x squared plus 11x minus 2. That's the area, and that should be equal to 28. Okay, so we can write that down and work out what x is. So we get negative 2, 11x, and 6x squared. 6x, negative 2. Negative 1x plus 12x, yeah. Which is equal to 28. So take away 28 from both sides, we get 6x squared plus 11x minus 30, which is equal to 0. Now try and factorize it if you can. If you can't, that's fine as well, okay? And we're going to try and work out what the x is. We can use quadratic formula. Again, you can use calculator hopefully in this one. If not, that's fine as well. So I'm going to generally looking at the 880 and the factors. Two numbers multiply to get 180. When you add or subtract, that gives you 11. If you can work that out, you generally can factorize that. Okay, two numbers multiply to get you 180, which is negative, and then when you add them, you get 11. Right, so we're looking at two numbers multiply to get you 180. When you add them, you get 11. So you can look for the factors of 18. Go 1 and 18, that's not going to get you there. So 10 and 18. We can look at another one, that's 2 and 19. 9 and 20. So those are the one. The 9 and 20 does work. Okay, so we can look at that's 9 times 20, and that's 20 and 9. I need 9 to be negative. That gives you negative 180. Now you can use that and factorize that. Okay, so again you can do this grid method things, but I need to remember get 20 and 9. Okay, those are the way I'm going to be looking at. So 20x and negative 9x at some point. So that's negative 9x and that's 20x. Okay, now we know this is going to be negative 30 here. And that's going to be 6x squared. So however we split that, make sure we get that 20x there, that's negative 9x there, and then we can complete these ones. So if I do 3 and 3 there, that would work. So I'm doing 3x times 2x, because 2 will go into 20 and 3 will go into 9, and that will work. 3x times negative 3 will give me that. So I got one pair. Now the negative 3 times 10. Positive 10 and positive 10 times 2x will give you 20x. Okay, so those are the two factors that we get for this entire things, and we can write it down. 2x minus 3 multiplied by 3x plus 10, which is equal to 0. And now once you've done that And this is the reason it's 7-mark question. Okay, once you're done now, you can say, okay, is either that going to be 0 or is either that going to be 0. So if you make 2x minus 3 equal to 0, then we can say 2x is equal to 3, and that means x is equal to 3 halves. Or if you make this equal to 0, so you can say 3x plus 10 is equal to 0. That means 3x is equal to negative 10, and the x is equal to negative 10 over 3. And that's not going to be the case because we're looking at the length of the rectangle, which is always going to be the positive. So we're going to ignore the negative parts and we're going to focus on the positive parts. Okay. And now we can put x equal to negative 3 over 2 and work out what length is and what the width is. So 3 over 2 times 6 will give me 9. Take away 1, so that length is 8. And 3 over 2 add 2 will give me 3.5. Okay, you can do that. 3 over 2 is a half, 1.5, plus 2 gives you 3.5. Now 3.5, 3.5, 7, 8 and 8 will give you 16. So we got 16 add 7. So the perimeter is equal to 16 add 7, which is 23 centimeter altogether. And that's what we've been asked to do. Perimeter of that rectangle is 23 centimeters. Apparently there are 40 questions on this, so I'm going to have to upload it as a 2-part series. Okay, so we're going to look at it 1 part and another 14 question as a separate second part of that series. So I'm going to stop this right now, transfer the data, come back and do that. So if you like it, please like it, share it and subscribe. I'm going to do the second part very soon. Okay, and probably come in the same day. So try and get you as much material as possible to revise for your exams.